Here's a quick video on the basics of playing Full Moon. There is a werewolf team and a village team. The village team just wants all the werewolves dead. Once all werewolves are revealed as dead cards, the village team wins. The werewolf team wants as many non-werewolf cards dead as there are players. For instance, in this game of 5 players, once 5 non-werewolf cards are revealed as dead cards, the werewolf team wins. Your team is dictated by the cards in front of you. At the beginning of the game, you will get 2 cards, which you will look at and then place face down in front of you. Your left card must remain your left card, and your right card must remain your right card. No secret switching. If any cards in front of you, living or dead, are on the werewolf team, then you are on the werewolf team. If all the cards in front of you are on the village team, then you are on the village team. Sometimes players can move cards in front of other players, so your allegiance might change mid-game if your cards get changed. There are 3 ways for a card to be killed. The first way is to be directly targeted by a player, usually through an attack. For instance, if Tiana directly targets a card in front of Katie to be killed, then Katie must flip over the card and place it as a face-up card in front of her. The second way is through a lynching. When a lynching begins, players may take some time to discuss which players should be lynched. The player who started the lynching chooses when to count 1, 2, 3. On 3, all players participating in the vote must point at another player at the table. The player with the most votes on them is lynched. The player who started the lynching breaks ties. When you are lynched, one of the cards in front of you must be killed. If you have a living card on the werewolf team in front of you, you must kill a werewolf team card. If none of your living cards are on the werewolf team, then you may choose to kill any one of your cards. This means that lynching is a great way to learn a player's allegiance. If a player is lynched and flips over a card on the village team, then you know the rest of their cards must also be on the village team. The third way for a card to die is when a player loses a challenge. Throughout the game, players will take actions that they claim the cards in front of them allow them to do. Sometimes players will be lying. For instance, suppose Tiana claims she can take the action switch. Switch a card in front of you with a card in front of another player. Katie doesn't think that Tiana has a living card in front of her that allows her to do that. Katie challenges Tiana. Tiana may fully prove the challenge, lose the challenge, or half prove the challenge. Tiana can fully prove the challenge by revealing a card, such as the Doppelganger, that has the ability to take the action she claimed. If she does, then Tiana shuffles the card she revealed with the cards in the middle and takes a new one so nobody knows her card anymore, then takes the action she claimed she could take. Katie must then kill a card in front of her for challenging Tiana and being proved wrong. Katie may choose any of her living cards to kill. It doesn't have to be a werewolf card. If Tiana cannot prove the challenge, then she loses the challenge. She tells the players that Katie was correct and that she cannot take the action she claimed. Then, Tiana kills any one living card in front of her for losing the challenge. Tiana may also have the ability to half-prove the challenge. To half-prove a challenge, a player may show a card that has an action or reaction with the same name as the claimed action, but that is carried out a little differently than the action that was claimed. For example, Tiana could reveal the Apprentice Seer, which has a reaction called Switch, but is used to switch a player's card with the card in the middle, rather than 2 cards between players, just as Tiana had claimed. With the Apprentice Seer, Tiana has half-proved the challenge. She shuffles her Apprentice Seer with the cards in the middle and takes a new card so nobody knows her card anymore. Then the action Tiana tried to take is blocked, but neither Katie nor Tiana kills a card due to the challenge. Now for the gameplay. On your turn, you will take 1 action from the actions available in the village. The actions you can legitimately take are the actions listed on the living cards in front of you. If you choose to take an action that is not on a living card in front of you, then you are lying about being able to take that action. If nobody challenges you after you claim to be able to take an action, you will then take the action and play moves forward. If you are challenged, you must resolve the challenge before play moves forward. The 2 general actions that any player can take no matter what cards they have in front of them are income, take 1 coin from the treasury, and lynch, pay 7 coins to start a lynching. If a player starts their turn with 10 coins, they must take the lynch action. They cannot choose to take a different action. Sometimes there will be actions or reactions that allow cards to die by being turned sideways face down instead of being flipped face up. These face down cards do not count toward how many werewolves or non-werewolves are dead because players cannot be sure what the dead card actually is. Play will move clockwise as each player chooses 1 action to perform around the circle. As this happens, cards will be attacked by other players and they will be killed due to lynchings and challenges. If a player has no living cards in front of them, they may still take any actions available to them, usually just the general actions, but they cannot participate in votes, such as lynchings. The moment all the werewolves are face-up dead cards, the village team wins. The moment there are enough non-werewolf face-up dead cards, the werewolf team wins. A player cannot win the game with their team if the game ended with them losing a life due to a challenge. For instance, if a member of the werewolf team loses a challenge and kills the final needed non-werewolf card in front of them, the werewolf team wins, but the player who lost the challenge does not win with their team. Sometimes players may believe that all remaining unrevealed werewolf cards are not living in front of any players. For instance, perhaps players think that the last werewolf is one of the cards in the middle, or that it is actually a sideways dead card in front of a player. In this case, when a lynching starts, any player may suggest that players lynch the middle. Then, when the vote is cast, any player may point to the middle rather than at a player if they wish. If more than half the players vote for the middle is lynched. When the middle is lynched, all the cards in the middle, all sideways dead cards, and any other cards that have been removed from play are all flipped face up. If the rest of the werewolf cards are among these cards, the village team wins. If the rest of the werewolf cards are not among these cards, the werewolf team wins. Finally, a word about what you can and cannot say during the game. You cannot name other cards you have seen. Even if you are lying, you cannot point at a card and say, that card is a villager. You cannot remind people which card you looked at 2 turns ago. You cannot remind players which 2 cards switched last round. You can't even tell people you don't trust a certain card or that you feel fine about the card you just looked at. You can, however, say how you feel about players. You can say, I don't trust Katie, or I think Todd is on the village team. However, if you ever need to back up the feelings you express, you can only use actions that player has taken during the game in your argument. For instance, you can't say, I don't trust Katie because I saw an evil card in front of her. But you can say, I don't trust Katie because she keeps voting for people that I think are on the village team. Now, as a group, you'll want to quickly go over the different cards that are in the village, briefly explain each action and reaction these cards have, and take the time to ask questions if needed before beginning. This way, all players will have at least heard all the possible actions in the village. Often, players will take a picture of all the description cards in the middle with their phone, so they can review the card descriptions privately throughout the game if needed. Have fun!